This is CBC Vancouver News.
Thank you so much for your help. Thank you. We really appreciate your effort.
We thank you.
Thank you so much.
Tears of thanks and sadness.
It's overwhelming.
Burnaby's urban search and rescue team returns home after working to find survivors of the massive earthquakes in Turkey. An avalanche kills 2 more people in BC. Of the latest victims in a deadly season were trapped.
I think it sends a signal to every girl, every woman, that no matter how much you try, no matter how much you accomplish, you're still not important enough.
And they're Olympic champions and World Cup contenders, but members of Canada's national women's soccer team are fed up. More in their fight for equality and compensation. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Gratitude and grief flowed freely at YVR tonight. Members of Burnaby's urban search and rescue team returned to a hero's welcome after spending days trying to rescue people from the rubble of earthquake-leveled Turkey. Dozens of Turkish Canadians embraced the team, coming home after days of wrenching physical and emotional work. The volunteers left a week ago, and days later they helped to rescue a woman trapped for 5 days in the rubble of her collapsed apartment building in Adıyaman. British Columbians who have lost loved ones in the disaster say they are immensely thankful for the team's work.
I'm so grateful. I wish there was one rescue team that went immediately in the first 35 hours when my family really needed it. They were under the rubble for, some of them were for 35 hours and some of them for 90 hours.
The team says the scale of the devastation is immense, and they encourage people to donate to reputable aid agencies. Still, those who lost everything in Turkey offered to help them.
We were on the streets doing night operations, and they were trying to feed us from what they had. So just a beautiful country and truly resilient people. We were, once again, just taken back at how much they just wanted to give when they had not much even to offer that during that time.
Team members say they will now take some time to decompress and reconnect with their loved ones. 2 more backcountry skiers have been killed in an avalanche in central BC. The pair were caught on what's categorized as a size 2 avalanche in the West Chilcotin. It was on a slope called Potato Peak, 750 kilometers northwest of Vancouver. Both skiers were buried in the slide and did not survive. Search and rescue crews were notified when the men were reported overdue. They later recovered the bodies from the scene. The names of the victims have not yet been released. At least 5 other people have died from avalanches in BC so far this year. Forecasters have compared this season's snowpack to one of the most deadly seasons 2 decades ago. A new report shows the number of children living in poverty in BC dropped significantly during the first year of the pandemic. But as the CBC Zara Premji shows us, advocates say those numbers are too old to speak to today's situation.
The first part of it says that there was a decrease in poverty, and I don't think that's true.
Advocates are warning anyone who looks at BC's child poverty report card to go forward cautiously. In 2019, the child poverty rate sat at 18%, and the latest data shows a decrease to 13.3% for 2020.
This data was collected at COVID, when COVID started. When COVID started, we had government supports at that time for everybody.
But those government benefits have since ended.
If you just took away the pandemic benefits that were in that year, it would have been 20% in BC, which was higher than 2019. So the trend was actually going up, but the additional money made a difference.
First Call and Youth Advocacy Society created this latest report card using income and census data from Statistics Canada, which shows a single parent with a child is considered living in poverty if their income is just under $34,000. The new report also says the average child poverty rate on 59 BC reserves was 29.2%, more than twice the overall child poverty rate. The cost of living has skyrocketed in the past year. Last fall, grocery inflation hit a historic 11.4%. This year, the Bank of Canada has raised its key lending rate to 4.5%, and inflation is expected to carry through the fiscal year. Brown says the province needs to help low-income families more than it already has.
I've lived on the welfare system for a long time because I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get anything full-time because there was like my younger kids, we needed childcare.
Our government has got our eyes wide open on this, and we'll be continuing to work with those on the front line to identify where we can help the most, where we can help families and people living in poverty with costs.
Along with that, the 25 recommendations from the report call for an elimination of post-secondary tuition fees, universal maternity and paternity benefits, and so much more. And Brown says if the province wants to see the poverty rate continue to decline, the time to step in is now.
We're going to be in deeper if we don't get the supports now. If we wait until the next report, then there's going to be even more people in trouble.
Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Premier David Eby met with federal counterparts today to work on BC's bilateral agreement as part of a larger deal on healthcare funding. The MPs are on a cross-Canada tour negotiating deals with provinces and territories. As Mira Baines reports, the BC government is looking for more support for long-term care, home care, and mental health and addiction.
Happy Valentine's Day.
All smiles at a Valentine's Day meeting on healthcare. The Federal Health Minister and Intergovernmental Affairs Minister met with Premier David Eby on BC's agreement this morning. The meeting lasted about 50 minutes.
We are going soon to come to an agreement in principle, given the conversation that we had this morning.
Yesterday, the premiers announced they would be accepting the federal government's offer of increasing healthcare transfers to provinces to about 24%. Duclos says next, they'll negotiate a bilateral agreement based on BC's priorities, unique to the province.
For British Columbia, it's about $600 million this year. It's about $330 million next year. And it kind of varies between $300 and $500 million over the next 5 years.
Ottawa's federal healthcare funding plan includes new funding in 4 key areas, including family health services, healthcare workers, mental health and substance use, and modernizing the healthcare system.
Where we're going to allocate those resources and commitments around providing data and sharing data with the federal government.
BC's healthcare system is under strain from the pandemic, coupled with a shortage of family doctors. This political scientist says there's a sense of urgency to come up with a deal.
I think there's a certainty with regard to budgets. That's one piece of the puzzle. But the other, I think, is just, particularly for the federal government, this has been a thorn in their side, and they really want to put the issue to bed.
BC is also looking for federal help to ease the immigration pathway for healthcare workers to come to BC and national recognition of credentials. Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
People gathered in Vancouver this morning to remember murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls, specifically those lost on the downtown east side.
We're here! We're here!
The Women's Memorial March is held every year on February 14th. It dates back to 1992 in response to a woman's death in the neighborhood. Led by Indigenous women, the march highlights the vulnerability of Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit and trans people, as well as the support that is needed to help them.
When somebody is reported missing, for the RCMP or the city police, whatever jurisdiction they have, to start looking, to take things serious. Oh, missing 24 hours. In 24 hours, that woman could be miles and miles away or already gone.
The route traveled through the downtown east side, honoring women at the locations where they were last seen or where their bodies were found. Surrey City Council is officially supporting the protection of a piece of farmland slated for industrial development. Some call the parcel the most fertile soil in the province, though it is federally owned.
Theoretically, the City of Surrey doesn't actually have a decision. It's entirely up to the ALC. The City of Surrey, they can support or deny the application, but it's not up to them. However, they are very well placed to say, well, look, this actually harms our interests.
70,000 people have signed a petition in support of Surrey's move. The Heppel family has farmed the 220 acres near 192nd and 36th Avenue for decades. But the proposal also includes another 80 acres that is currently treed.
People are looking and seeing at the future, hey, we should be able to sustain and grow our own food. And this piece of land that our community has come together to protect is a large piece of the puzzle.
The report to Surrey Council indicates the city's farms produce more than $167 million in sales and supply more than 3,000 jobs. It also says, though, removing the lands from industrial development could cost the city millions in tax revenue. The Katzie First Nation, meanwhile, is against the change. It says moving the parcel into the province's agricultural land reserve would impede their ability to make a land title claim. Metro Vancouver mayors are on the push for billions more dollars for public transit.
TransLink is at capacity and is struggling to grow. We are at a crossroads. Either we begin to plan for the future with the support of senior governments, or we will be forced to do what so many other cities are doing by robbing Peter to pay Paul.
They want $20 billion over the next year from Victoria and Ottawa. Mayors are citing reduced ridership and pandemic losses for creating a funding gap and a drop in gas tax revenue as more electric vehicles hit the roads. They plan to use the money to pay for a gondola to SFU, the UBC SkyTrain extension, and a fixed length to the North Shore from West Vancouver. Mayors say if the funding doesn't come in, they may have to increase fares. Last month, CBC News at 6, Vancouver News at 6 did a call out asking you to submit stories for Valentine's Day. Annette Greenwood nominated her husband Joe. As the CBC's Ethan Sawyer explains, the pair had been dating less than a year when Annette suffered a stroke.
At a time of situationships and dating apps, some courtships still start the old-fashioned way. Enter Annette and Joe, who were set up through two mutual friends who scheduled a low-pressure lunch.
I saw him making lunch for the girls because they were delayed, and I thought that was really sweet of him, really engaging.
That she was really smart, really nice, and really way out of my league.
While they hit it off well enough to continue hanging out, the couple admits things moved pretty slow to start.
I thought with Joe's personality that I was going to have to play the long game.
Some would maybe call it the eternity game. They spent 11 months together before their first kiss. It was 11 months after that Annette ended up at Richmond General Hospital.
My leg moved by itself. I couldn't hold the TV remote. I kept dropping it, and I knew that something really bad was happening.
She later learned she had suffered a rare stroke. Joe rushed to her side.
It was a really tough drive.
On the drive, he kept thinking one thing.
Oh yeah, the relationship was at, I cannot lose her. It's not a thing, it can't happen.
Annette's recovery was slow and filled with complications. Her brain swelled and it was causing her to lose her speech. She underwent decompression surgery. Part of her skull was temporarily removed. Through it all, the love was constant.
Joe would take me around. I couldn't drive at that time, so he was my chauffeur. Anywhere I needed to go, wanted to go, he would take me. And when we were out, he was always watching the ground for rocks or holes or stepping over curbs.
The experience confirmed what the couple already knew. So they got married, albeit in an untraditional manner. While they plan on staying together forever, for now, they live under separate roofs.
It helps our communication. We're not taking advantage of each other. We cherish the time we have together. And we're still being independent, being ourselves, without feeling obligated to fill each other's time.
As for why she nominated Joe,
well, he deserves to be acknowledged for his heart and who he is. And everything he gave to me.
Joe, how do you feel hearing all that?
Shy. I've never taken praise particularly well, so sometimes it's hard to hear it, but it's nice and coming from Annette.
Ethan Sawyer, CBC News, Vancouver.
Separating family because a box hasn't been ticked.
an orphaned child in South Africa kept from her BC relatives. Now the family's fighting the immigration rules, standing in the way of a reunion. More on that after the break. Thanks for staying with us on our commercial-free live stream tonight. For some, Valentine's Day is a chance to share some extra love and affection. For others, it's all about that chocolate. In St. John's, grade 2 students were asked what today means to them.
Love is the people that you love and you feel grateful for them. It means when you really like somebody.
It's a thing about kindness and helping others.
What is love? It's like caring for someone. I would say love is showing kindness. Valentine's Day is not just about love. It's about showing kindness. Love is a thing where you spread joy and laughter, and you always give somebody a high five or a hug and make them and fill their bucket. Love is when you love somebody like your best friend or your friend. Love is just for caring, and it's not about loving things. My family. My teacher. My sisters. My family and friends. My Nan and Pop. My mom and dad. My everyone. Mostly everyone. Freya.
That your best friend?
Yes, my parents. My best friend Elena. She is the sweetest little girl you could ever meet. Saying compliments? By giving a smile on their face.
By helping them and being kind to others.
Care for them. By giving them a compliment. Being kind, helping them. I give them cards and you say nice things to them. Just saying to them, I love them. I show her with words, I show her with playing with her, and I show her that I'm her best friend. Sharing gifts to my favorite people. Chocolates, Valentine cards, mostly flowers. Eating chocolate.
No, me too.
I just like Valentine's Day because it's how you show kindness, and if you are scared to say that you like someone, you can do it on Valentine's Day.
A BC woman is fighting to bring her 9-year-old great-niece to Canada from South Africa. She was named the child's legal guardian after the girl's mother died. But as Yvette Brend explains, Canadian immigration officials say that's not enough.
I see my little girl. Oh my gosh.
They set out cookie ingredients to bake in 2 separate kitchens, a way to feel close, despite the thousands of kilometers between them. Mixing up sweets helps ease the bitterness of separation.
Wonderful, yes.
Lisa Pine Mercier has been fighting to bring her grandniece to join her family in British Columbia for the past 2 years.
On the 9th of January, I got a terrible phone call.
Riley Ridland was just 7 years old when she was found on a remote farm with her mother, who had been dead for days.
I don't want to imagine, I don't want to create the pictures in my mind of what she saw or smelt.
A shocking and traumatic case, made even worse for Riley. Her father wasn't part of her life, and she was eventually officially deemed an orphan. Lisa, a Canadian citizen originally from South Africa, was declared her legal guardian. But so far, Canadian immigration officials have refused to let the child move here.
Despite all of the documentation we have submitted, to still cause further trauma, further keeping a wedge and separating family because a box hasn't been ticked.
Immigration officials have denied Riley's immigration application because her father is still alive, and they say a legal guardian is not the same as adoption. A legal expert who reviewed the case says immigration officials don't want to expand the definition of direct family to great aunts for fear of opening a floodgate.
I think the basic fear is that if the definition of family becomes too large, too many people will be eligible to apply to come to Canada.
So it's more waiting while Riley is living in a foster home in South Africa. Still,
she's so happy to know that she has a family.
These two dreaming of a day they will bake together as a family in Canada.
Wow, your cookies look awesome.
Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
An ongoing labour dispute between Canada Soccer and the women's national team is threatening to dampen their preparation ahead of this summer's Women's World Cup. Lindsay Duncombe has more on the off-field struggle for equality.
To win it for Canada!
They are Olympic champions accusing Canada Soccer of second-class treatment.
We won the damn Olympic Games, and we're about to go to the World Cup with a team who could win.
Canada's national women's team so fed up it refused to play at a key tournament in Florida this week, only relenting when Canada Soccer threatened legal action.
Like we've all said, we'll be playing these games in protest.
The women say they've seen their training cut, number of players and coaching staff reduced. They want the same opportunities as the men's team received ahead of their World Cup.
Canada Soccer said in a statement it is committed to a collective agreement that delivers real change and pay equity, admitting more work needs to be done.
Sponsors are watching. GE Appliances Canada said today it's taking the women's statements extremely seriously. Allstate Canada says it's trying to better understand what's going on. Ottawa is weighing in too.
We're going to speak with the women's team soon, and we're expecting to have discussions with them and see how we can help.
At the heart of the dispute, a business arrangement Canada Soccer made in 2018, contracting out a decade's worth of sponsorship and broadcasting deals to a private company linked to a professional men's league.
The stock of both teams has obviously gone up dramatically since 2018, and I'm not sure Canada Soccer fully understood the potential revenue that they were giving up when they signed this deal 5 years ago.
They played well.
For those who've been in the game for decades, it's discouraging.
I really think it sends a signal to every girl, every woman, that no matter how much you try, no matter how much you accomplish, you're still not important enough.
Gold medals, it seems, don't easily translate into cold, hard cash. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
There's a live shot of Harbour Centre in Grouse Mountain behind. Kuljeet Kaila will have your BC-wide weather forecast after this.
Just the two of us. We can make it just the two of us.
Do you remember the first time you met?
Yeah.
You want to tell us about it?
Nobody would understand. I don't know, it was like a beam of light that here was somebody that I could understand and who understood me almost immediately.
It provides a kind of springboard to doing things that you maybe wouldn't do on your own. It gives you more courage, maybe.
You're not alone. Have somebody else there with you. People that are live with somebody else live longer, and I can see why, because they're not alone. Being alone's terrible.
Just the two of us.
Now, what is it about being a couple that's better than being single?
I really like having somebody to hang out with and somebody to share things with, and you get to taste twice as many things on the menu, you know? It's like that.
And what is it you like about him?
Oh, that is so difficult to his personality. He's always happy and easygoing and good father, wonderful husband. Do you want to hear any more?
No, that's enough.
Just the two of us.
15 years. That's a long time by today's standards. What's the secret?
Just trusting each other, getting along, giving up once in a while. Don't always think it's all one-way street.
Oh, so you give in?
Give in.
I think just to be able to see the humor in situations that can carry you through a lot of bad times. Not to take things too seriously, because there's not too many things that are really, really that bad.
Just the two of us. We can make it just the two of us. Just the two of us.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 8th, celebrate International Women's Day with Gloria Makarenko at the West Coast Leafs Equality Breakfast. Get your tickets at westcoastleaf.org. And dance away the winter blues with Corleone at Pop Capella 3 on March 3rd and 4th. Backed by a band of Vancouver's best, the Corleone Ensemble will take on your favorite hits. Tickets at corleone.org.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Time for your BC-wide weather forecast with Kuljeet Kaila on a pleasant enough day for all the cinnamon hearts and last-minute dinner reservations. Kuljeet.
We had a lovely Valentine's Day, lots of sunshine out there, a little bit of cloud developing later today, and that cloud will take us into tomorrow as well. And by about Thursday, we do have a low pressure system making its way to British Columbia along the entire coast and for the lower mainland. Around Thursday afternoon is when we'll start to see some of that rain start to fall, and it will stay with us into Friday and possibly into the weekend. Only a 40% chance for now, but that may change. And by Tuesday, that system will clear out. Across BC, some really low temperatures with the wind chill overnight tonight, 25, minus 25 in Fort Nelson, minus 17 in Dease Lake, and cold in Smithers as well as Prince George in the minus double digits overnight. For tomorrow's forecast, for Prince George, a little bit of snow coming in, -1 during the day as the high, 5 degrees in Prince Rupert with some wet conditions through there. Wet conditions for Port Hardy as well, and a bit of snow for Williams Lake, and a little bit of sunshine and -2 tomorrow. Some stats for today. Today's high, 6 degrees, a little bit colder than the average for this time of year. Same with our low. Next rainfall, as I mentioned, is 70% risk of starting Thursday afternoon. The humidity quite high as well. Again today, 68%, quite humid and nice outside. Now this rain that's coming on Thursday, up to about 10 millimeters, not too much. Will stick around for Friday and into Saturday, a 40% chance of rain all the way through. Temperatures holding steady at around 5 or 6 degrees, and then the sunshine returns for Sunday. And Monday, Tuesday, we might be returning back to a bit more rain.
Okay. Thanks very much, Kuljeet. That is your late news for Tuesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. Happy Valentine's Day. Good night.